Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is part 3 in our 5-part series, specifically designed for new members or people that are just logging into BNI Connect for the very first time. And what we do is we kind of break BNI Connect down from a member perspective into a couple of different pieces so it's easier to digest and jump in and hit the ground running. So today what we're going to be talking about is really kind of the social media side of BNI Connect. BNI Connect platform is kind of like our very own private walled garden, if you will, very similar to like a LinkedIn, where we can connect with other people around the world, and it's exclusive only to BNI members. So that means that if you're looking for a plumber in Pittsburgh or you're looking for a chiropractor in Canada, you can find somebody in BNI that is able to provide those services and make a connection with them. We're going to follow this up next week with a couple of webinars. On Wednesday, December 28th, we're going to be talking about the member tools and reports, so we're going to take a deep dive into BNI Connect. Then on Thursday, the 29th, we're going to talk about inviting and registering visitors. A couple of housekeeping things before we get started with today's presentation, and that is if you are with me here today, it is December 21st at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific. That means you are on a live webinar. So if you'd like to ask questions or make comments or anything else as we're going along, please feel free to do so. The best way to do that is by typing it into the questions panel. I'll see that pop up on my screen, and I'll be able to answer those questions as we're going along. Of course, if you're listening to this by recording, and we do record all of our webinars as well, you can always send in a question to support@bniconnect.com. Again, support@bniconnect.com. Now, we do try to keep these webinars to about 30 minutes or so of content. That way we're very respectful of people's time. I know that everybody has busy lives and phone calls to return and everything else. That said, I am always happy to stay on these webinars until every single question has been answered. So do feel free to ask as many questions as you'd like. Just keep in mind that the only silly question is the unasked question. So let's get started with today's content. And as I said, BNI Connect is really, it's a little bit of a social platform as well, in that we have some means to interact with other members around the world. And this really allows us to kind of grow our network significantly. When I first joined BNI back in 2002, the only thing I knew was the 20 members that were in my chapter. And it wasn't until I started being on the leadership team and a director consultant that I met other BNI people around the world. But it wasn't until BNI Connect came around that we actually have the ability to tap into those resources anywhere in the world, because BNI is in 73 countries right now with 210,000 members around the world. So likely there's a BNI member that can perform whatever services it is that you're looking for anywhere in the world. Now, before we do that, one thing to keep in mind is as a social platform, people are going to be looking at you and looking at your profile. So if you haven't done so yet, please make sure to fill out your profile. Now, I'm not going to spend very much time on this. We did do this on Monday's webinar, so if you'd like to check the recording, we go into detail about how to fill out your profile. But here's a very, very brief overview. In case you missed that one, make sure you go into Update Profile My BNI page, or up here at the top, click on Options, My Account. And really the big secret here is go through all of the tabs along the top and fill out all of the details. Just go through all of them one by one and fill everything out. The things to concentrate on are this first tab. Make sure your My Business is filled out, but also your keywords. Now the keywords are very, very important. One thing to keep in mind when we're talking about this social media side of things is that we don't quite have the search algorithms that a Google or a Bing or a Yahoo does. We're doing more of it's still a sophisticated search, but it's still a database search. So that means that in order to allow yourself to be found, most of the time people aren't looking for you by name, they're looking for you by what resources you're able to provide. So that's where your keywords come in, because when somebody does a search, of course they're going to look for, it'll search against your industry and your classification and your address and your business name and things like that, but you really want to supplement that with additional words, and that's where the keywords come in. So, one thing to keep in mind too is that with the keywords, they are a little bit more specific. So if your profession is accounting, you want to make sure that you also probably put in accountant or accounting services or things like that that people might be searching for. If you're an accountant and you also do bookkeeping, make sure you have bookkeeping in there. Now, you also want to be careful. There is you don't want to step on anybody else's toes, especially in your chapter, so make sure you're not putting in keywords that will overlap with other people's services in your chapter. You can also put in things like locations. So if you have other towns or other cities or other areas that you do business in besides where your business is located based on your address, make sure you put those in there as well. The second thing, make sure that you have a picture up there. I can't tell you how many times I've come across a photographer's profile and there was no picture there. Make sure you have a picture up there. And then finally, on this gear, the account settings tab, my strong recommendation to you is this is which of your profile aspects you're sharing with other people in BNI Connect, inside the system. So when somebody finds you in the BNI directory, what information are you going to share with them? Now, by default, most of these are set to My Connections, meaning that once somebody has accepted a connection request, then they can see this information. For things like your contact details, which is pretty much your phone number and address and things like that, I highly recommend you set this to all. And that's because most of the time when somebody's using BNI Connect in order to find a resource, they're going to look at somebody's profile. If the information isn't shared, if it's not there, they will immediately move on to somebody else. They're not going to wait until you accept a connection request to reveal that information. All right, so let's go back to the home screen here. Let's take a look at some of these kind of social side of things. And to do that, what I'm going to do is click here. On the left-hand side, you'll see there's this ribbon. And the ribbon is currently highlighting My BNI Business, which is all of our weekly activity here in BNI Connect. If I go from My Business to My Network, this is going to be some of those kind of networking components here within BNI Connect. So you can see it's broken into a number of tiles here along the home page. We have our connections, and connections is really, it's meant to be your personal BNI address book. So as you meet various people around the world, you can connect with them, very similar to how you connect with people in LinkedIn or Facebook or things like that. You're going to be automatically connected to the people in your chapter. So we're not going to start you off all alone. You will have your fellow chapter mates as your connections, but you can request a connection from anybody in the BNI world, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. The next tab over here is the groups, and the groups functionality is really what allows us to have conversations with other BNI members around the world. So as we're meeting people, or even in an effort to meet people, we have these discussion groups. And right now there's over 500 discussion groups where people are talking about a whole lot of different things. They're either talking about business, they're talking about BNI stuff, they're talking about positions in BNI, they're talking about sharing leads and referrals on a global scale. Great way to get involved in the bigger network is through the groups. The next thing over is documents. There is a regional document sharing section here. Now that means that these are documents that your executive director, your region, is sharing with other members in your region. So it could be things like, I don't know, like the visitor sign-in sheet or things along those lines. That aren't necessarily headquarters documents, or they've been customized in some way for your particular region. Again, that is a regional tool, so you can't upload anything in there. That's something that your executive directors and director consultants have control over. Going to the bottom left, we have the testimonials. So once you're connected with somebody in BNI Connect, you can give them a testimonial, and they can give you a testimonial. That's a great way to build credibility here in BNI Connect, is to give people testimonials, say something nice about them, and brag about something that they've done. The next thing is the events, and the events are regional events, things like the Member Success Program, or they could be advanced trainings, advanced one-to-one trainings, or they could even be networking events like business after-hours events or First Friday coffees, or anything that your general region is promoting as far as additional training resources or additional networking resources. Those are all available through the events tile. That is also available, by the way, if you up in the top click on regional website and go to your events calendar. That's available there, but this is in a list format. The next thing is a messaging system. There is an internal messaging system in BNI Connect that allows you to send quick messages between your connections. One thing to note, this is not necessarily an email my chapter thing. These messages do stay internal to BNI Connect. So if you're looking to get a more urgent message out to your chapter, there are other ways to do that. What I've found is not everybody logs into BNI Connect in order to see these messages. So especially if you're on a leadership team, I can show you how to email your chapter. But this is a great way to send messages between your connections. There is also in your account settings, you can choose to forward those messages to your regular email, so that way you can stay on top of them. So let's look at first things first. So we have our connections. So as I said, your connections are really, it's your personal BNI address book. And if I click on Manage under Connections, that will take me into my Connections interface. I can also up here at the top click on Network Connections. So if I'm in any other page in BNI Connect, if I'm looking at a report or something like that, I can always go to Network Connections as well. So once I'm here, this is pretty straightforward. It just lists all of your connections here on the left-hand side. And there's really the contact cards on the right-hand side. So I can click on somebody's name on either side here. Let's say Charles. And this will open up basically the contact card for Charles. So I can see Charles is here from New York, Manhattan. I have his email address and his regular address and his websites and his his LinkedIn profile. So I could also do things like send him a message. I could ask him for a testimonial. I could give him a testimonial. I could go view his full profile in BNI Connect. This is just an abbreviated version. Or I can remove him from my connections. Now keep in mind you can only remove people from your connections if they're additional connections. As I said before, you will be automatically connected to all of the people in your chapter. So when somebody joins your chapter, you will be automatically connected to them. And when somebody leaves your chapter, you'll be automatically disconnected from them. If you move from one chapter to another chapter, you'll no longer be connected to all the people in the old chapter. You'll be connected to the people in the new chapter. Now, if you want to get connected with somebody, you can do that by clicking up here and clicking on Add Connection. Now, you can also click this icon up here in the upper right-hand corner, the magnifying glass. Or if I was back on my home screen there, my network screen, there's also this Add button here under Connections. Regardless of which one I click, it's all going to take me to the same place. So this right here is the search of the BNI Global Directory. And this is a search of everybody that's in BNI worldwide. So, you can look for people around the globe. So about 210,000 active members around the world, not to mention all of the people that are involved with BNI that are not necessarily members of a chapter. There's people like Dr. Ivan Meisner. He has a profile in BNI Connect, and Graham Weimiller, our CEO, and Elise Wilson, our national director, and all of these other people that support BNI, they all have profiles here in BNI Connect as well. Now, of course, the easiest thing to do is to just look for somebody by name. So, for example, I'm just going to put my own name in. Feel free to look for me, Jeremy Walsh. I'd be happy to connect with any and all of you. So you'll see here that it will pull up the results. So up here, it will have exact matches. That means it will 100% hit on whatever terms you put in there, on all of the terms that you put in there. Then you also have more results that will be a hit for at least one of the two terms. Now, I do have two profiles in the system. The second one here is my test profile. Just so you know, if you haven't filled out your profile yet, when somebody comes across and finds you in BNI, this is what they will see. So if you haven't put a picture up yet, if you're not sharing your contact details, they're going to see a very, very empty profile. I can tell you that people are using BNI Connect every single day to use BNI members as resources for them. I can tell you just personally, just the other day, I had a client, actually we still have the client has an office here in Rhode Island. They have an office in Washington, D.C., and then they have an office in Florida. And we handle most of their stuff remotely over the phone and things like that. But the office in Florida was moving. So they were moving really from one side of their complex to another. They needed somebody to help them physically move. Now, they could have flown one of my employees down there at great expense in order to do that. Or what I said was, hey, what if I reach out to a local resource? So I went into BNI Connect. I looked for computer guys in Florida, in that area. Came up with a half a dozen of them. By the way, anybody whose profile looked like this, I just went right past them. And they actually did that job for me just last week. Every single day that's happening all throughout BNI Connect. Of course, if you have filled out your profile, you can see more information from people. So you can see more details about them. Their bio, their connections. And it looks like while I was playing around before, it looks like I stopped sharing my contact details. So that means that anybody's finding me here in BNI Connect can't get in touch with me. I'm going to have to go in and fix that afterwards. Now, that doesn't just work for names. Let's say, as I was saying before, what if I'm looking for a plumber in Philadelphia? Right? I can pull this up and find all of the plumbers in the Philadelphia area. So I can click on somebody's profile, for example, and Mary here. Mary is a plumber in Philly Plumbing. So I could always send her a connection request, or good thing, she's sharing all of her contact details. That means that I can give her a call right away if I needed to. Now, if I wanted to add her to my contacts, to my connections, I just click on Add Mary to my connections, and I could send her a connection request. All right, so it's very basic to do that. There's also an advanced search. So if you're looking to get a little bit more granular with the search, there is this button right here. It says Advanced Search. So now you can kind of drill down a little bit more, specifically looking against first name or last name, or against a certain industry or in a certain country. You know, let's say I'd only like to make sure I'm going to do a search for, just people in transportation in the United Kingdom, and I can search for members there. Now, it does have a maximum return of 250 entries, so you will have to get a little bit more specific at some point. So you may want to put in a specific city, for example. You can also use this refine search here. What this does is it searches against the text on the screen. So if, let's say, I wanted to refine this just to London, for example, this will help me to refine the results that are showing. In order to get to narrow that down a little bit. So now once people start sending you connection requests, it is an opt-in. So you do need to make sure that I go back to connections, I go to network connections, and as people are sending you connection requests, you do need to accept those connection requests. You do that here and under My Connections, and you should see a section here, Received Requests. So here I can see I've gotten two, one from Suraj and one from Judy. And I believe Judy is actually on the webinar with us today. So Judy just sent this connection request to me, so I can click on her name. I can check out her profile. Judy's from Texas, and she's from Signs by Tomorrow. She is sharing her contact information. Great job. So I can go back here. I can also see if she put a personal message in here. And then I can choose whether to accept, ignore, or reject that request. I'm going to go ahead and accept that. Thank you so much, Judy. And I also have one here from Suraj. I can read that message to see if there's any additional message that I need to know about. And then I can choose to accept, ignore, or reject it. Of course, if I had multiple connection requests, I could also choose the select all. If I maybe had 5 or 6 or 10 requests. And now they've been added to my connections. Now, testimonials. Testimonials are given through the connection. So if you want to give somebody a testimonial, you do first have to be connected with them. And you can give them a testimonial simply by clicking on their name here and clicking on Give a Testimonial. All you need to do is type that testimonial out and click Submit. Now, you can only give one testimonial per connection, so do make it a good one. Now, if you'd like to see your testimonials and manage your testimonials, right here from My Connections, you can click on the testimonials. That'll toggle you over to the testimonials screen. Or if I'm back at my home screen here, my network screen, I could go to Manage under Testimonials. Or, of course, I can click on Network Testimonials. There's always a couple of different ways to get there. So I can see all the testimonials I've received. I can review any of those. I can also take a look at any testimonials that I've given to people. And if people have sent me a testimonial request, I can respond to those requests here. Now, for testimonials that you've received, you can also choose whether or not you wish to display that on your profile. Now, if the person does want to give you a different testimonial, you do have to delete it first. So you can delete that testimonial here. All right, we're getting pretty close to the bottom of the hour. There's one more thing that I want to show you guys here on kind of the social side here of BNI Connect, and that is the groups. And I think this is really a great way to have those conversations with people around the world. And really this is kind of what networking's all about, is that it really allows us to create those relationships with other BNI members around the world. So the groups are, well, they're discussions that people are having. So if I go into groups, I can click on Manage or Add. I'm going to go to Manage here, and this will take me into all of the groups here in BNI Connect. And we can see here that it looks like there are, well, there's about 496 groups here in BNI Connect. So something to keep in mind with groups in BNI Connect. Unlike a lot of other platforms, we enforce the fact that these groups must remain active. So if the groups go dormant, meaning that there's no posts or anything, that there's no activity in the group for 90 days, then we will send out a message saying, hey guys, if you'd like to keep this group alive, please make some comments. Then if there's still no activity, we will go in and delete that group. So yes, there are 500 groups, but they are all active groups here in BNI Connect. And you can see some of them are, this is Fast Track, we have Direct Sales, we have B2B, IT Focus Group. Now you can just go through and take a look at them page by page. That will take a while to go through all of the pages here, looking at them 5 at a time for 500 groups, about 100 pages or so worth. You can also do a search. So I can click this magnifying glass here up at the top. I can search by keywords, or let's say I wanted to search for the groups made by Dr. Meisner. I could type in creator of Meisner and click search. And we can see we have a couple of groups here. We have the From the Founder group, Why BNI. We also have the BNI Foundation. Now, if I wasn't already part of that group, I could click on Join Group, and that would mean that I get notifications from that group whenever somebody makes a post. As part of the group, I can go and click on the group and get engaged in that conversation. So, for example, this is actually a group that is run by Dr. Meisner himself. He's the one that goes in and does these posts. But he, for example, just the other day, he shared an International Networking Week video. So International Networking Week is coming up in 2017, and he shared a video here. So we can go and copy and paste and check out this video. So it's a way for him to be able to get some information out there. He also talks a lot about various blogs, and Gary here even replied to that saying, looking forward to it. Now keep in mind that if I go back to this group here, there are currently 4,048 participants in this group. That means that if I'm a part of this group and I'm involved in that conversation, that's 4,000 people that I'm reaching out to, which means that really increases the chance that maybe I'll make a connection with somebody. And if you're involved in one of the topics and you're talking with people, let's say somebody introduces themselves and you like something that they had to say, you could always click on their name, for example, and go to their profile and send them a connection request, or otherwise get in touch with them by emailing them or calling them. So again, this is what this is all about. It's about strengthening relationships. It's about creating relationships and getting to know other BNI members around the world. Now, if I go back to the groups, now I do recommend trying to join an active group, but if you'd like to create one, everybody does have the ability to create up to 7 of their own discussion groups. Just click on Add Group, fill out a couple of details, and you can invite any of your connections to it as well. If you are going to start a group, do make sure that you are active in that group and you're keeping that conversation going. As I mentioned before, 90 days of inactivity, and we will shut that group down. All right, well, we are just about at the bottom of the hour. What I'd like to do is to open this up to any questions. If anybody has any questions whatsoever, I'd love to answer those questions now. Just a reminder, we are recording this, so if you'd like to review it later, I'll have this month's series of webinars uploaded to the support site, hopefully in the next couple of days or so as we complete this series. Of course, a good referral for me is if you find these webinars helpful, or if you think there might be somebody that you know, either in your chapter or in your region, that would benefit from these webinars, please, a good referral for me is to share these webinars. Either share the recordings or share the registration links. Our next webinar is going to be tomorrow. I'm sorry, it's not tomorrow. We're going to be taking a couple of days off for the Christmas holiday here in the United States. And we are going to talk about member tools and reports on December 28th. So Wednesday, December 28th, this same time. And then we're going to talk about the visitor process. Will be our final webinar of 2016, but don't worry, I'm going to do the whole series over again January of 2017. All right, Karen has a question. She says, what is the accepted protocol with social media with other members? For example, do I friend request other members? So yes, basically send them a connection request. Now, here's the thing. We are an international, multinational organization, and each country and each region, and even within the United States, we have different thresholds for what we consider to be spam. And you really, really want to be careful when you're approaching somebody to make sure that you are really following the giver's gain process. Are you approaching somebody because you want to sell something to them? You know what? Nobody likes to be sold to. You know, if you're looking to develop a relationship, you know, to find some mutual benefit, you know, make sure that you're, you know, being honest and forthright with them. So, you know, I've seen many of these kind of go sour because they immediately jump in. Hey, you know, yeah, you would make a great client for me. Well, nobody really wants to hear that. That's not why we're here in BNI. We're here to expand our networks from a proactive standpoint, not to just sell to each other. Does that make sense, Karen? So Heather says, nothing to do with the webinar, but she lives in Groton, Connecticut for 11 years. It is a small world. It really, really is. Heather, where are you now? Yeah, Groton, Connecticut, by the way, for those of you that may not know the geography as well, that's about 25 minutes or so south of where I am right now in Rhode Island. So very, very close, and you know, very small towns, both Groton and Rhode Island. So Heather's in Indiana now, so I hope you're enjoying it out there. They have a great BNI team out in Indiana. So, all right. So, if there's no additional questions, what I'm going to do is thank you guys so much for your time, for being here today, and sharing some time with me. If you are in the United States and you're celebrating the holidays for the next couple of days, have a great holiday, and I look forward to seeing you. Oh, hold on a second. Hey, William says Rhode Island here too. Woohoo! The Rhode Island contingent. Karen says, okay, we have a couple of questions. Marcus says, what is the best way to build relationships? And Karen says, what about going to other meetings? So I kind of answer this the same way. When you go to other meetings, make sure that you're going again with that giver's gain mentality. What can I offer to the group? What can I bring to the group? Not what can I get out of going to the group, right? So make sure that you're not stepping on anybody else's toes. Now that is the biggest important. Don't try to sell yourself when you're there. You're there to meet new people and to build relationships, not necessarily to sell yourself. So that's something to be very, very cautious of. The other thing, and this is kind of a silly thing, you may think it's silly anyway, but make sure you offer to pay for your breakfast. Most chapters keep a little bit extra in their kitty to account for visitors. However, you're not really a visitor. You are a guest. You couldn't join that chapter because you're already in another chapter. So please make sure that you offer at the very least to pay for your breakfast. All right, so Marcus says, what's the best way to build within the system and looking to make connections internationally? Marcus, what I would say is, I don't know what your profession is and what you do, but seriously, those groups, start going through the groups because there's a lot of, especially real estate and lawyers and people that do a lot of international business that are looking to, pool their resources on a global scale. And that's where you can see what they're talking about, see what they're asking for. And when you just approach somebody and you try to sell them on the relationship through a connection, that can be a little pushy, but in the groups, that's exactly what they're looking to do. So I would start out by looking into the groups. Does that make sense? All right, cool. Well, again, thank you guys so much for being here today. I do look forward to seeing you on a future webinar, and in the meantime, happy connecting.